support for Regular Lab was provided by the Alfred P. Sloan Foundation.
Hello, I'm Josh Collinet, host of Afropop Worldwide. Good news! You can now hear music and stories from all across Africa and the African diaspora Saturday night at 9 on Vermont Public. So join me for exclusive live recordings, interviews, and travel to exciting international music capitals. That's Afropop Worldwide, Saturday nights at 9 on Vermont Public and at vermontpublic.org. See you then!
Thanks for being with us for Radio Lab here on Vermont Public. Stay with us for Vermont Lab. Vermont Public welcomes 2 new programs to our Saturday night music lineup. At 8 p.m. it's Jazz Night, hosted by bassist and bandleader Christian Brown. Then at 9, check out Afropop Worldwide with music from across Africa. All the favorites are still part of the lineup, including my place at 7, American Roots at 10, and Arts of Space at midnight. Find our full program schedule at public.org. Support for programming comes from Simon Pierce Restaurant, reaching now open for lunch and dinner with reservations required. Also offering takeouts Wednesday through Sunday. And to Celebration Recycling, serving local communities since 1975, providing food, composting, and organic recovery food. Hey, I'm Simon Adler. You're listening to Radio Lab. And today we're talking about Facebook. Now, since its start, a perennial thorn in Facebook's side has been content moderation. That is, deciding what you and I are allowed to post on the site and what we're not. Now, this steps by Facebook to fuel everything from a genocide in Myanmar to viral disinformation surrounding politics and the coronavirus. But, just this past year, conceding their failings, Facebook shifted its approach. They erected this independent body of 20 jurors that will make the final call on many of these journalists' decisions. The body is called Facebook Supreme Court. Now, we made this show for you in collaboration with the Yorker magazine as well as the Radio Hour. And right here, we're actually going to hand it over to them. Specifically, David Ronan, in session with Facebook Live. Now, you discovered in your reporting something pretty astonishing, and that was Mark Zuckerberg personally about the oversight vote last May. Why did Trump do that? What is involved?
So that call took place after Facebook had announced who the board members were going to be. And one of the people that was on that list, and she's since left the board, but she was initially one of the founding members, was Pamela Karlan, the Stanford law professor, and who had testified passionately at Trump's first impeachment hearing against Trump. And he was very upset, and I think that there was a sense that was growing at the time, and he saw it with his executive order a few weeks later, was that he was ready to strike on this anti-conservative bias that he and his administration and people in his campaign were pinning on Big Tech.
Well, it's the Trump problem, but on the other hand, you also have a much more amorphous problem, and that's one of misinformation. Just the giant slurry of conspiracy theory or misinformation is propagated on Facebook, and it has huge effect on the way we think, the way we read, the way our politics is conducted. What can Facebook do about this? What should it do?
I think misinformation is a great habit since the start. In the last couple of years, since the 2016 election and misinformation and disinformation became the topics that everyone was talking about, one of the things that you've seen people call on platforms to do is to remove more and more of this information, or to install their own fact-checking processes, or to have some type of balanced representation of what they're going to keep up or take down. I think that what you're seeing is the gatekeeping function that journalism provided for so long is in place for journalism, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's in place for user-generated content that people are posting on sites. And at the scale that people are posting, you're simply not going to be able to do that kind of fact-checking in a meaningful way. As I'm sure that you know, is an issue, and that maybe that will have a public education role.
There's definitely subtleties, and there are all kinds of ways to argue fact. But I think you can agree that there really is no such thing as a Jewish space laser that ignites forest fires from outer space, or all the other jokes that we've heard taking holes, even in the halls of Congress. Will Facebook just say, well, fact is a funny thing, throw up its hands, and not adjudicate any of this?
Well, it's so interesting. Let's use the Jewish space laser, because I think that this is kind of an amazing example.
I just want you to know that I have one at home.
So one of the things that you'll hear a lot when you do content moderation from me, because you're not scared, is that you have to understand things in context. What would it look like to decide that you were going to ban Jewish space laser? Are you going to ban that phrase? Or are you going to set up an automated process that takes down every post that people use the term Jewish space laser? What happens then if people want to be creative and make a short play that they post on Facebook that involves the Jewish space laser? And it's satire. Right, exactly. And so what I'm trying to say is this is part of the context and the intentionality that is completely lost when you just have words or thoughts or photos or videos going from one person straight out into the world without any type of curation. You are going to have misunderstanding. It's going to be very hard to decide when someone is intentionally trying to spread misinformation and harm other people versus when someone is mocking that someone is trying to harm other people.
Totally understood, but you also don't want to throw up your hands. I mean, Facebook says that it's not a publisher. Isn't there a fair amount of hubris, though, to the idea that Facebook can create an international mechanism for adjudicating free speech disputes? Is it just a kind of cosmetic one?
I don't think it's a fair amount of hubris. I think that it's actually, it only would strike one as hubris if you were in denial about how many decisions they're already making around these types of things without any transparency or any accountability or any thoughtfulness on behalf of the people who use this platform. And so I think that, of course, there's a chance that it ends up being a cosmetic thing. In fact, there were a couple of scenarios about a year ago about what I thought that this was going to be that I was running through my head. And one of them was that it just dies when it first launches. You never hears anything. Its decisions are simple and short, and it's not a serious thinker, and it doesn't tell us anything about freedom of expression or anything else. But I think that there is, there's that phrase that, when you start an institution, it's 20% the documents, the founding document, it's 80% the people, as the head of the list of people. Nobel laureate, former Prime Minister of Denmark, UN officials, directors of human rights organizations, law professors. And I think that they have picked people who are just incredibly serious and have very big reputations, and they are not willing to put their reputations in play here for something that is going to be half-assed.
Fair
I don't know
enough.
if I can say
Now, what are the stakes in this for the economic future of Facebook, for the bottom line of Mark Zuckerberg?
Yeah, so this is an interesting question, and it's a little counterintuitive, because I think that it's a mistake to think of this delegation of power, this kind of decision to hand over part of the keys of the kingdom to another outside body as a bad business decision. I think it's actually a very smart business decision, because I think it takes a giant pile of controversy, headache, and everything else, and says, if this is really a hard decision, just like the Trump decision, we're going to give this to this body of international experts that are going to kind of weigh in and tell us what to think, and then we'll follow their directive, and it's no longer just us sitting in Menlo Park.
So what's the likelihood that this board can really, truly be independent of Facebook?
Yeah, so there's a bunch of different types of independence that I think that we should talk about. So one of them is obviously financial, and they created this intermediate organization, a trust, to hold $130 million that Facebook gave as a non-revocable gift. And that helps give them financial independence from Facebook. But then you also really do have to look at how they're going to select their new members, and they're going to start selecting their members without any involvement from Facebook, unlike this kind of first panel. And so that creates their own independence. And then I think that you're going to see that their decisions are going to part ways from Facebook quite frequently. And if they part ways consistently and it ends up having an impact on Facebook's long-term policy, you're going to see that it's independent and it really is true oversight. But we're not going to be able to see that until we start to see some of their decisions. When I had a chance to sit down with Mark and talk to him about this, the impression that I had from our conversation was that he was, at the core, this person who was kind of a coder that had become this arbiter of truth, or this denying being an arbiter of truth, but he was in fact running a company that was making some of these multinational decisions about speech and determining whose speech stayed up and whose speech went down. That didn't sound like something he enjoyed, let's put it that way. It sounded like something that was very hard to necessarily feel qualified to be doing. And so I think that this, for him, was a way of being able to delegate this role to a body of people that would be in a better position to make some of these really hard choices. And so that he could focus on other parts of the company.
Facebook has got billions of users all over the world. Is it fair to ask whether any government is actually large enough to regulate Facebook?
Oh, certainly.
In KQED, Farida Jabvala Romero reports.
Cleaners, nannies, and caregivers often report getting hurt or sick on the job from repetitive motion injuries, exposure to toxic cleaning chemicals, or contagious illnesses. Yet, they're excluded from workplace health and safety laws in most states. A remnant of slavery, say historians, and the devaluing of work traditionally done by women. Esto es un comienzo. Socorro Diaz, a house cleaner from Santa Rosa, was on the advisory committee convened by a state law to develop voluntary guidelines for employers to identify and control home hazards. Si lo que realmente queremos es una ley. Diaz said the new guidelines are a step in the right direction to end the exclusion in California. She hopes for more steps this year. For NPR News, I'm Farida Jabvala Romero in Oakland.
The NFL playoffs resume this weekend. Today, the Kansas City Chiefs will play Jacksonville in the AFC. In the NFC, the Philadelphia Eagles will host the New York Giants tonight. I'm Nora Rahm, NPR News in Washington.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include American Cruise Lines, following the journey of Lewis and Clark while small ship cruising along the Columbia and Snake Rivers. Learn more at AmericanCruiseLines.com/NPR.
From PRX, this is the Moth Radio Hour. I'm your host, Jennifer Hickson. Have you ever heard the advice that if you want to have an important conversation, have it in the car? There's no place to go at 55 miles an hour, so it's a pretty strong strategy for getting your talking points heard. And the car is an intimate space. The content of the conversation will hit targeted ears only. It was completely unplanned, but during one car ride, I explained the very basic elements of how babies are made to my children. My son was silent for a moment and then asked, but how do they talk the men into doing that? I had to add a couple extra miles onto that trip. In this hour, stories of the drip, both literally and figuratively. In this first story, both a beloved car and very fierce determination. Juliet Holmes' story begins in the 1940s when she was still a little girl. Juliet told me, growing up in the segregated South, many places that were called public were actually restricted for black people. It wasn't unusual for her family to observe the world from the safety of their car. At the Williamsburg Hall of Music in Brooklyn, where WNYC is a media partner of The Moth, here's Juliet Holmes.
Well, I guess you all can tell that I had two men walk me on the stage. In other words, ladies, you are never too old to have two men. Not one, but two. And I'm going to tell my age tonight so that you all can say, huh? I still have it going on at 84. I'm not going to talk trash tonight. I'm going to get to the business of telling my story. I grew up in Savannah, Georgia, in the Low Country. And Savannah was like all segregated apartheid cities in the South. And what an experience. But I really didn't know that I was living in a segregated world because my mama and my daddy took such care of me and my sister and the community. We lived in the village. Savannah is a beautiful city with a lot of other islands around the mainland in Savannah, like White Bluff, Pinpoint, Skidaway Island, so many other islands. But one of my favorite places to go was to Tybee Beach. Tybee Beach was like 28 miles from the city of Savannah. And on Sunday afternoon after church, my daddy and mama would take us on rides around.
Encore plus enfant que ce qu'elle devait être, c'est-à-dire une jeune femme bohème. Comme si lui donnait un côté.
And I would sit in the bedroom,
Mais toujours très petit aussi.
ocean. And on our drive, we would talk because we couldn't wait to get to Tybee Island. When we would get on the island, my daddy would say to us, now look to your left. Look. I'm going to pull over. And we knew what that meant. The amusement park, all with the merry-go-round and the Ferris wheel and all of the excitement. And you could hear the children and the people laughing and having so much fun. And we wanted the same thing. But we sat in the green Chevrolet watching and just having fun too and laughing. As my daddy would slowly go down the main street, we would look out the window and we saw women walking with their babies.
go to ice cream, and he had the best time. He absolutely loves it. I said, oh my God, let's go home. It's been hectic. And when we're about 5 minutes from home, I look in my rearview mirror, and it's that Hardy shirt guy again. And he is pissed. And he's right behind us, and we are weaving in and out of traffic because we don't want to go back towards home because then he's going to know where we live and he's going to hurt us. And so we're weaving in and out of traffic, freaking out. And I decided I got to call 911. So I call the cops, and I'm like, hey, there's a guy who's been following us. He threw quarters at us. I danced into a scrub songs to him. I don't know. Can you please send help? And they were like, sir, please don't prank call us. And they hung up. And I realized that, okay, the authorities were not going to help me in this particular dispute. So I was like, I don't know what to do in a situation like that. Never been in it before. So what I decided to do was have Hashem drive us to Wisconsin. Now, I don't know if you know how much of a coward you have to be to leave the state because someone threw quarters at you. Well, the answer is this big a coward. And as we sat there in the Kenosha, Wisconsin Buffalo Wild Wings, I had failed my duty to make Hamza feel at home. And I could not make eye contact with my little brother or my cousin Hashem, who were so mad at me. And I definitely couldn't make eye contact with Hamza. So I'm just looking down. And Hamza says, Umar Bani, that was freaking awesome! What are we gonna do tomorrow? I'm like, nothing, dude. There's gangsters down there, man. And I was so happy in that moment that Hamza felt great. And I know that no matter what I do, I'll never be able to repay the debt that my family owes Shakir Khan. But I'm going to keep trying one Pakistani at a time. Thanks.
That was Omar Qureshi. When we first met Omar at our story slams in Chicago, he was a law student. I was always astounded that he found the time to come tell stories and be in law school. He's now a lawyer with his own firm and has less time to get out there, but it's like he's angling to get back soon. As for Hamza, he still talks about his wild ride with fondness. Shakir Khan, the man that Omar's father cold called from the white pages, if you are listening to this story, won't you please contact the Moth office? We'd love to put you in touch with Omar's family. We finally want to thank you and give you that call back. To see pictures of Omar's dad and uncle around the time of their graduation and pictures of the family out eating in Chicago, visit themoth.org, where you can also download this story. Thank you to all the storytellers in this hour, and a special shout out to everyone listening in their cars. That's it for this episode of the Moth Radio Hour. We hope you'll join us next time.
This episode of the Moth Radio Hour was produced by me, Jay Allison, Catherine Burns, and Jennifer Hickson, who also hosted and directed the stories of the show. Co-producer is Vicki Merrick, associate producer Emily Couch, additional Grand Slam hosted by Larry Hills. The rest of the Moth leadership team includes Sarah Haberman, Sarah Austin Jeunesse, Meg Bowles, Kate Tellers, Jennifer Birmingham, Marina Kluche, Suzanne Rust, Brandon Grant, Hank Wadowski, Sarah Jane Johnson, and Aldi Kaza. All stories are true as remembered and affirmed by the storytellers. Our theme music is by The Drift. Other music in this hour from The Fearless Flyers, The Staple Singers, Supertramp, Brad Meldau, and Ramsey Lewis. We received funding from the National Endowment for the Arts. The Moth Radio Hour is produced by Atlantic Public Media in Woods Hole, Massachusetts, and presented by PRX. For more about our podcast, for information on pitching us your own story, and everything else, go to our website, themoth.org.
Good afternoon, and thanks for being with us here on Vermont Public. Stay with us for Reveal just ahead. Support for programming comes from our listeners, as well as Vermont Folklife's Burlington Summer Trad Camp. helping inspire youth through local music and dance traditions. btfolklife.org/tradcamp. As well as Wendell's Furniture in Colchester, a family business helping make homes comfortable since 1999. Wendell'sFurniture.com, where customers become friends. This is Vermont Public, 88.7 WRVT Rutland, 94.3 WBTN FM Bennington, 88.5 WBPA St. Johnsburg, 89.5 WBPR Windsor, 88.9 WBPA Brattleboro, 107.9 WBPS Burlington, and on your smart speaker. Reveal is next. It's 4 o'clock.
From the Center for Investigative Reporting and PRX, this is Reveal. I'm Al Lenz. For nearly a year, Sheila Doss toiled with other prisoners in the coal mines of Tennessee.
You can't fathom what took place inside there or how they was treated.
They've been branded criminals by a racist legal system that targeted black men. Some were tortured.
The direct quote is, "It would be inhumane to whip an ox with this whip." And they're using it on humans.
Some never made it out alive. These prison mines were owned by one of America's biggest corporations.
It's the new slavery.
Stories of men like Sheila Doss were nearly forgotten until now.
You know, this is something that needs to be told.